And we're going to broadcast. And we'll give, once we start broadcasting, it always takes a second to get all the attendees on. There we go. All right, well, good afternoon. Welcome to Infopointe, Alphapointe's online learning platform. For over 100 years, Alphapointe has been a national leader in the education and rehabilitation of people with vision loss. Today, our Infopointe is on wearable technology for low vision, and we have two guest panelists today, Amy Wagner, who is a sales representative for NanoPack and works with these devices day in and day out and has knowledge on a variety of devices. And then Mark Myers, a former Alphapointe client, who has been an Esight user really from the beginning. So as we get started, we're going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So this is a webinar designed with accessibility in mind. That means that we will describe anything that we are showing on the screen. It also means that for those with low vision, we have a black background with yellow text. If you are a Zoom text user and you have your color inverted, if you want to turn the feature off, the key command for that is caps lock C. There is a chat box. If you want to share information, maybe your own experiences, you can go in that chat box. There's a ribbon kind of either at the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on the layout of your computer. And you may have to touch your screen or move your mouse to get that to show up, but you can then go into that chat box if there's anything you want to share with the other participants on the webinar. And then we also have a question and answer portion that will take place at the end. So if you have a question as we're going through the webinar, feel free to type it into that question box. And then at the end, we will answer questions from the webinar. So our objectives today is we want to compare some of the wearable products, do just a basic comparison of what you can expect from the most common products that we see. List the considerations that people have when they're trying to decide whether or not to get the products. What are the benefits? What are the things that you have to think about? And again, we want to explain the benefits of wearable products. This is a still somewhat newer field of technology. It's been around for a few years now, and we're seeing a lot of exciting advances. I know people have a lot of questions about them. So we're going to turn it over to Mark in just a second. Mark just recently graduated from the University of Missouri-Rolla. He went to their science and technology school, and he has degrees in computer science and engineering and physics. He recently, I believe it was last year, studied abroad in Hong Kong for a year, and he's getting ready to enter graduate school in Asian studies. So Mark, you, as I mentioned, have really been using Esight from the beginning. And I can remember you were actually the one that taught me about Esight, and you were my first experience with wearable technology. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Right. So I actually first heard about Esight from my mom, who had seen it on Facebook or something like that. And I had just graduated from high school, and we were kind of interested in the wearable, Esight. And at the time, all we had known about was Esight. And so we arranged for a visit. So my grandpa and little sister and I, we drove up to Toronto and actually tried out the Esight. It was really amazing. I mean, they were very, I had actually used some wearable glasses in the past. I can't think of I think it was the Jordy glasses. The Jordy glasses, I had worn them in elementary school. So I had some experience with some wearable glasses, but these were, in my opinion, much better and wearable, for day to day and for classroom use, which was what I was most interested in them for. So I tried them out. I really liked them. And then I started doing fundraising for them because I couldn't get funding for them at the time. And so I worked with Lions Club, Boy Scouts of America locally, and then reached out to family, friends, and and those kinds of people to eventually raise enough money to purchase some. And I actually ended up purchasing some in sort of a roundabout way. I didn't purchase them directly from Esight. I had found a person who was they had bought them for their elderly wife, and she never used them or didn't like them as much as she thought she would. And to sort of help them out and help myself out, he was selling his for much cheaper than I could get them from Esight directly. So I ended up going with that option. And then you can, I was able to sort of transfer the warranty to me with Esight, and it's been pretty seamless from there. I've only had, really minimal issues with the Esight glasses. I had an issue with the power cable basically going bad, and so I had to send that in for repair and got it right back. It was no big deal. And then throughout this was 4 years ago, mind you, so I've had them since then, and I've used them both in class and out of class. The primary uses that I've found for them, though, were for tasks that I didn't already have a very convenient method of working around it. So of working through some inaccessibility. So, for example, I would grade for a lot of computer science courses, and for exams and paper worksheets and things that students would turn in, it would be really hard for me to see that. And it's not really advisable to scan someone else's exam and store that, on your personal computer. And so what I ended up doing was using the Esight glasses to really see what they had written, and it worked out very well. Another thing that I really liked them for was the ability to see, like on the whiteboard or on the chalkboard in a class where a professor might not be very articulate about what they're writing on the board or describing anything. And sometimes, you have those kinds of people who, either they're elderly and they just don't understand, and, they try to accommodate, but it's never quite there. And so, I found that the Esight really helped me through those kinds of classes where, otherwise I really would have been lost on what was on the board. So basically, the two things I found the most use out of were seeing things that I couldn't otherwise digitize, and seeing, the board. And that's one of the biggest benefits, is you can do both of those. You can see really up close and you can see far away. They are very adaptable in that sense.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. I can remember I first got involved with this when you came to our Lions Club meeting. In fact, I think that might even have been before I officially worked at Alphapointe, and you told us about this amazing technology and how, as a college student, that was going to be a life changer for you. And now you went through at least 1 year of college without the Esight glasses, right?
Correct.
How did using this technology change the college experience for you? Especially as somebody, when I think of physics and engineering, I think of those as subjects that are often taught in a very visual manner.
Right. So I would say that I was fortunate enough that a lot of the beginning courses that I was taking in my freshman year of college were like very friendly to blind and visually impaired students. They had a lot of their stuff online, or, if they did print it out, they had a digital copy they could send you, and it was very convenient in that sense. So I was lucky enough to really not have a lot of issues my freshman year. And so I can't really, actually, I strike that. I did have one issue with one professor. I was taking a mathematics course, and she had said, she had her notes, a copy of her, handwritten notes that she had started to make copies for me in class. And she said she would continue to make copies of these handwritten notes that she had for, the course. But after just a week of class, she kind of gave up on it and was like, go to one of your classmates because it's too much work for me. And so what I ended up doing was kind of using the Esight for a while to get around this. In the end, though, what I actually ended up doing was, or no, I didn't have the Esight at this time. So what I ended up having to do was going to my department chair for that course and having to switch sections because I couldn't use the Esight to accommodate in this situation. And so that was something I wouldn't have had to do otherwise. If I had the Esight, I could have, just gone along and never had to ask her for anything again, and just made it work. But, after that, I never had a big issue like that again, because if they weren't willing to accommodate, I just worked around them, and you can't always do that depending on your, vision level. And for me, it just, that was the easiest thing at the time.
And Mark, I believe when you started, you mentioned that, I believe when we started helping you fundraise back then, they were up to $15,000, and the price ended up coming down just even during those couple of years that you were fundraising, correct?
Well, it's actually kind of unfortunate the way it happened. During the whole fundraising process, I was in direct communication with a representative from Esight, and up until this point, they were $15,000, and then they came out with the Esight 2, which went down from 15,000 to 10,000, I believe, and that was actually kind of an unfortunate interaction with Esight, because only like a month after I had gotten the Esight secondhand, did they switch over to offering the Esight 2, and so it was kind of unfortunate and kind of not so savory in my opinion. So that was kind of my last interaction with the Esight company. I would say the product itself is very amazing and does exactly what you would expect of it, but the interaction that I had with the company at the end there was not so savory, I would say.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for telling us your story, and I think it was important to kind of hear, because we have a lot of questions from people about wearables, about what can they do for me, and so I think it's nice when they can hear from somebody who has used them and has had that experience, and you've been a long time user of them. Use them throughout your college career ever since you've had them, and it sounds like you're continuing to use them as you enter grad.
Right.
And so we'll go I know that there was a question in the chat about not being quite familiar with the product, and so we wanted to start with the story just to kind of set up what we're talking about with wearables. And so that was a great segue, because that brings us into the common products. So when we're talking about wearable technology for low vision, what we're talking about is, I always refer to it in my mind as a portable CCTV. These are video magnifiers that, instead of having a handheld unit about the size of your cell phone or a desktop unit about the size of a computer monitor, that these are ones that you can wear. They typically have a camera and a screen, and they all have different setups. Some have built-in cameras, some use cell phones, but they all operate on the same kind of principle as a CCTV, that you have your camera, you have your screen, and you wear it like a visor or like sunglasses. And so there's different models, but they all operate on that principle. The most common that people ask me about, and I don't know if Amy, if this is your experience, is the Esight, because I think that's the one that was one of the first big ones on the market, the modern version of these. I know Jordy's been around for about, I think, 20, 25 years. But Esight started this current. And so that's the one I hear people ask the most about. And what it reminds me of is the visor that Geordi wears in Star Trek. It's the very, it's kind of about a couple inches tall, thin, white, and it does not block your bottom peripheral vision. And that particular model is unique in that it has something that is in that you can tilt it up. On the glasses, it has a hinge so that if you're wanting to switch between looking directly at the Esight, or if you're doing something where maybe you don't need to look through it, you need to keep switching between, it makes it easier to do that. That is the one that we get the most questions on because I think they have probably the most advertising out of any that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
The next brand that we see a lot is the New Eyes. The New Eyes have two different models. So the New Eyes Pro, what I really like about them is they look like sunglasses. I can remember when New Eyes came out, they were one of the first to have wireless controls between the glasses and the controller. And at the time, there was a lot of lag in the camera. And so I really was not very impressed with the initial version of New Eyes. And then they came back to us about a year later with this new version. And they absolutely blew me away with how much they had improved the product. That it's going to give you the same type of stuff the Esight gives. It has the contrast, it has the magnification, but what it is, but it has the wireless, and it looks like a pair of sunglasses just with blacked out lenses, which I've had clients who are maybe more image conscious say that they appreciate that because they don't feel as conspicuous. And then the New Eyes 2, their other version, works like a lot of the more recent products on the market. It looks like a VR headset. And so that one, the downside to the VR headset models is that they do block your peripheral vision, but many people find them more comfortable to wear over a long period of time. And then the Iris Vision, the Patriot Viewpoint, and the Geordi, the Iris Vision, the Patriot Viewer, and then the Vision Buddy are all that VR style headset. Some of them use cell phones, some of them have integrated cameras. And then the Geordi is a visor kind of like Esight, but it's got a big camera in the middle of the face. But they all operate on the same principle. So that's when we're talking about the wearable technology. There's lots of different options, but they all do essentially the same thing. They all magnify, they all provide contrast enhancement. Some of them have different bells and whistles, such as being able to stream to the camera directly from a device instead of having to focus on a screen and then watch the screen through that. But they all operate on the same basic principle, and we'll let Amy Amy's much more knowledgeable about the differences between the devices. Some considerations that people need to think about when they're thinking about, is this device right for me, is visual condition. Mark, do you mind sharing what your vision loss or what your vision is like for you?
Yeah. So one of the ways that I try to explain it is, so I had retinoblastoma when I was a baby. And so I have a very little central vision, but I would say that I would describe my vision more like a lower resolution, honestly, like on a TV or like a monitor or something. You know, there's like the number of pixels you squish into, you know, a screen, and that gives you more details and more granularity. I would say that, like, if I was to compare my vision to something, it would just be like a very low resolution. So it's kind of blurry and not as crisp as someone else's, but I can still see like color and outlines and you know, text and things that are enlarged enough. So
Yeah. And what I have found, at least, is that typically that type of vision loss works best with these devices. We do see them, companies advertising them for conditions like Stargardt's disease, macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy of prematurity. So anybody who is a CCTV user, they work best with central vision loss. They do work for some forms of retinitis pigmentosa, but what I have seen is that they work better for the reverse form of RP because of the way the cameras are set up and the difficulty some people have with peripheral vision. So you have to think about your visual condition. And then some of the devices, there are some that you have to really have good eye teaming. You have to have your eyes working together pretty well. So there are some that actually have, there's one device on the market that actually has two screens. Most of them only have one. So some people find that if they have difficulty with having their eyes work together, that sometimes they do have difficulty with a wearable device, but that's not something you'll know until you try it on. Like Mark was saying, you have to think about what tasks were needed. So again, in my experience, and Amy and Mark may have a different experience, when somebody tries them, if there is a task that they already have a solution for, what they might find is that they might be able to do something a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, but it's most successful in tasks where you don't already have a good workaround, is what we have found. So things like looking between a board in a classroom or a meeting setting and being able to look down at your paper. Particularly where I have seen that is students or professionals, because we've seen the portable CCTVs. A lot of people find them have the camera has lag, and trying to turn the camera between the distance and the near vision constantly to take notes or to refer to a book and a board at the same time is very difficult. And by the time you get it set up, you get the CCTV set up, if you're moving around like a college student from class to class to class, your class is half over and you're still trying to get everything all put together. So I have seen a lot of students and professionals really enjoy these. I think, Amy, you mentioned that a lot of people enjoy them for TV watching.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
So lots of distance tasks where a CCTV or a handheld magnifier may not be as appropriate. Comfort is another one. All of them fit differently. I know that the original Esight, one of the biggest complaints I heard from people who used it was that it did push down on the forehead. And as the models have gotten better and they've gotten lighter weight, that has not been as much of an issue, but all of them have different ways of cushioning around the goggles or straps that go over the top of the head. So some people find certain units just feel better on their face for long-term use than others. And that's not something that you'll know until you try it, because everybody has a different preference on how they fit. And then cost. Cost on a wearable device like this typically ranges between $2,000 and $6,000. We've come a long way from when Mark first started fundraising and the device was $15,000, but they're still fairly expensive. It's about what you would pay for a high quality CCTV, depending on the features that you need. But there's a lot of benefits to using these devices. I think one of the biggest ones is hands-free. Mark talked about using it for grading, or again, if you're in a meeting or you're in a class and you're trying to switch between looking at the board, looking down, because you could always use a monocular in that situation, but then you're having to hold it in place while you're taking notes, while you're reading the book. So being able to do those tasks that are much easier accomplished with two hands is one of the biggest benefits that I have seen from people who have tried these devices. And again, the ability to switch between distance and near. The CCTVs that do that have gotten a lot better, and there are people who use them and get great benefit for them. But when you're having to do a lot of that switching, having to switch the camera, and especially in a classroom setting, get the camera focused on the right spot on the board can be tedious. And so being able to switch from that distance to that near vision, and many of them have an autofocus feature that helps you do that seamlessly, and the autofocus on the newer models is much quicker than it used to be. Contrast enhancement, like with a CCTV, so you can change, like kind of we have our PowerPoint today, the black background, yellow print. Those types of contrast enhancement features are available on a lot of these models, especially for when you're doing reading tasks. And reduce light sensitivity. Depending on the model, there are models that completely block any light that comes in from around the top or the sides of the goggles, and you can adjust the screen brightness. And so people with ocular albinism, with diabetic retinopathy or other conditions where they have light sensitivity, find that this can help them because they're getting the magnification they need, but they're also blocking out the light that makes it more difficult to see or makes it painful. Amy, you sell these devices through NanoPack, correct?
Correct.
So what have you found in your experience when people are looking at these devices? What are the things that they're often considering when they're talking to you?
So first I would say it's mostly what their goals are. So depending on, the tasks that they're wanting to be able to use the device for, whether it's reading, watching television, being able to take something out and about to the grocery store and read labels, look at the products, find prices, as well as, clients want to have something that they can take to a sporting event and be able to zoom in and zoom out on, in the field, bring faces in closer, and even church. I do have clients that just enjoy being able to take it to church and zoom in and zoom out, to different things. So really their goals, if they're wanting it for magnification, and like you mentioned, the portability of it as really is a portable CCTV, and especially with the fact that several of the models also do offer the OCR, which is the scan and read feature. So that's nice as well. And then especially the ones, if their goal is for television viewing, the ones that, allow the option to stream directly into the device is ideal for those individuals.
What have you found has been, do you have like a product that's more popular than others, or that people have more success with than others? Or do you find that certain products work better for certain visual conditions?
Yes, so it's really good to be able to, if possible, to be able to compare the different devices. There's, as you kind of touched upon, for macular, depending on what your eye condition is, but for macular, if you have lost a lot of your central vision, then the ones that offer the wider field of view are going to, be most beneficial in that regard. But then, for someone who needs a smaller field of view, whether it's, they have retinitis pigmentosa, then the Geordi, some of the others are going to, different ones are going to be more beneficial for that. And then, again, it's just going to, some of them also offer, like the Iris Vision also has an RP mode. So they can switch it if they do, if things change or they need that smaller field of view, that one typically, that they have the ability to do that with that one as well. So really depends on, again, what their goals are and their eye condition and, all the other factors we've kind of touched upon, comfort, the clarity, sometimes one will seem the clarity will seem much better to a certain individual than another one. So it's nice to have lots of options and then, kind of narrow it down based on your goals.
So if somebody is wanting to look at them, how can they, is there a place they can go to see multiple options at once? I know at Alphapointe we have the Geordi and we have the New Eyes, but we don't necessarily have like the Esight or the Patriot, for example, just sitting on our shelf. Is there somewhere that they can go, Amy?
Yes, so that's how NanoPack, so we provide that service. It's, complimentary consultation. So if someone would like to be able to demo, several different options, that's where we come into play as well, similar to how you all function there. It's just, they can reach out to me. And actually, I do have a PowerPoint, but I can share that at the end with my name and contact info. And I'm happy to, I'm happy to schedule a visit, whether it's in the workplace or at home, wherever it's most convenient, and just kind of, talk about what the goals are and then narrow down the options and take a look at several things.
Amy, if you want to go ahead and share that PowerPoint now.
Sure. Let me, okay, I'm just going to click on my share screen. You know what, Jessie, it's not letting me share my screen.
Oh, okay, it should now. This is the first time we've had a guest panelist from outside of Alphapointe, so we're still working out the bugs on our end. There
okay. There we go. Can everyone see, is that coming through okay?
Yes, I see the complimentary demo
Okay.
slide. So.
Yeah, so my name, phone number, and email address. And I can read, so if anyone wants to jot that down, if you're having trouble seeing, my contact phone number is 913-424-5252. And my email is simply amy@nanopack.com. And nanopack is spelled N as in Nancy, A, N as in Nancy, O, P as in Paul, A, C as in cat. And I do cover, I think I might have just seen a question pop up quickly there. I do cover Kansas and Missouri. So I'm happy to, you know, like I said, happy to schedule wherever it's most convenient.
And so that question, I don't know where the person who asked, are you only in your state, or where can others see the devices to compare? Is there someone in New York City area? We would have to look that up and get back to you, unless Amy, if you're familiar with a vendor in that area.
Right. So NanoPack as a company does not have a representative in that area. But if there is, you know, if there's a specific device that, you know, if you're ever in this area, or, you know, I'm happy to provide information just, you know, through email or over the phone as well to help with that.
And if you have a low vision store in that's near you, they might have an idea, you know, we don't sell everything. We don't sell all of the devices here at our store at Alphapointe, but we do sell like the new eyes and the Jordy. So we would, if somebody came here to our store, we would have a couple they could try on, just maybe not as many as Amy has.
Right. And that's the good thing. Yes, because you do have a few options that we do not have. So, yeah. So it might be, yeah, it would be probably a good idea to do both if they're interested in, you know, taking a look at across the board at all the options.
Yeah.
And that's another good point too, Jesse. You know, I'm happy to, you know, obviously we work with Alphapointe and hand in hand, and we, you know, we're very honored to be able to do that. And I'm happy to also meet clients at your location as well.
And we've often set up those demos with NanoPack for people if they want a place that they can come to easily demo those products and see them and see, because that's I think one of the biggest things that I've seen with wearables is you really have to try them out to see if they're going to work for you. I mean, even two people with the same eye condition on paper might get vastly different benefit from one of these products.
Right, definitely.
And there are a lot of great options on the market. You know, we had a client, I think a few years ago, who told me I will never wear one of these magnifying wearables because they were very image conscious. They were a student. And they said they just felt like it made them stick out like a sore thumb. And then we were able to show them the new eyes, which have a sunglass shape. And they said, actually, I think I could do that. And then we've had clients try one that's more front heavy, like a Jordy or a New Eyes, and say, you know, these just aren't comfortable for me. But then they try the VR style ones like the Iris or the Patriot or the Vision Buddy, and they tell us, oh, this is so much more comfortable. So you really do have to put them on, see what works for you and with your vision when you're deciding whether or not one of these is right for you.
Exactly.
One thing I would like to add too is that a lot of times, sometimes these companies themselves will market things as like making you not blind anymore, you know, like, you know, that you would wear it all the time, 24/7. And for, I would say, very, very few people, it's like that. But for the vast majority of people with low vision who are going to be using these, it's a tool that replaces other tools you already used. Like it replaces a monocular, it replaces a handheld CCTV, it replaces these things and makes it hands-free and very convenient. But it's not like you can just see now, you know, it's not like that. Sometimes it's kind of romanticized as that, but I just want to make it like clear from somebody that's used it and tried New Eyes before that, I mean, they are really powerful tools, but they're not like magic, you know.
I think what I have seen, and Amy, I don't know if you've had a similar experience, when somebody first tries one of these on, I like to call it the shiny factor. There's a lot of excitement because it is seen in a way that maybe you're not used to seeing. Cheryl, who is the manager of our store here, when we first got the Esight to demo, back when we were still a demo center for them, she took them home and she told me, I saw my grandchildren's faces for the very first time in my life. And that was a really exciting thing for her. And she told me, I'm able to do things, you know, like sending a fax through the fax machine, or a copy that, you know, we had tactile features on them, we had ways to magnify, but she said it just, she told me, it's not that I'm doing anything that I couldn't do before, I'm just doing it in an easier way. But then over time, you have to decide, is carrying it around, taking it on and off, all those things that go into having that wearable magnifier, once that kind of shiny new factor wears off, are you still going to use it? And we've seen some people that, like Mark, who use it all the time, and they still have those tasks that it really is the best tool for. And then we've had people say that, I just don't know that I can justify the cost. You know, and we had a question about how can we lobby with manufacturers to lower the cost. That is a great question. I know we have seen costs come down from 15,000 when they started to, I think right now, lowest one I have seen is about $2,000. Some of it is just the cost of the technology that goes into it. Some of it is captive audience that we see with kind of a niche market. But I would say if you write the manufacturers and let them know that the cost does keep it out of your range. And then there are manufacturers that offer financing programs. There are manufacturers that will offer to give you paperwork for reimbursement from vision insurance, and will tell you what vision insurance covers and at what percentage their devices, but they don't work with the insurers directly. It's typically you buy it, they reimburse it. So that is a big consideration for a lot of people, is the cost of these devices. And so I have seen people say, well, I just don't know that I can justify the cost for what it does for me. I can't justify it. And then there are people that say, absolutely, this is worth every penny I've paid for it. So it really depends on your individual situation.
And if, Jesse, if you don't mind, if I could just add a point there too. You know, there are agencies as well, because, you know, unfortunately with insurance not helping with this type of technology, but, you know, there's Missouri Council for the Blind, and, you know, certain agencies that will, you know, well, and I'm always, you know, happy to help try and facilitate that when I can, but they can provide a grant to help with at least part of the technology cost.
And that's where working with somebody like Amy, who this is her whole job, is selling devices like this, can be very beneficial, because they can help you discover if there are untapped resources there for financing. You know, somebody else asked, is there a consultation with a low vision specialist for each consumer to ensure wearable devices will work effectively or safely for them? I know here at Alphapointe we have a low vision clinic, and so if you have those questions, we always recommend that you start with a low vision exam with a low vision doctor to determine what your current level of vision is, what magnification, lighting, contrast you need to be able to maximize the vision you have. And then here at Alphapointe, our occupational therapists take that, and if you're someone that's interested in a wearable device, they would speak with you about would that be something that would benefit you. They would be able to demo the ones that we have here, or arrange for Amy to come and demo. So part of it will depend on where you are. But we do always recommend, if you're not sure about your vision, having a recent low vision exam in order to make sure that you've got the best information moving forward. because we do want to make sure that they are effective. And the safety is a good thing to bring up, because there are some that block peripheral vision. So if you still have use of peripheral vision, you may benefit more from one like the Esight that does not block peripheral vision, if that's a concern. And most of these you'll find will say that you don't use them for navigating. You don't use them for, we've seen people say, well, could I drive with this? Most of them are not recommended for driving. And there are some that they recommend you don't use them when you're trying to walk around, because they block peripheral vision. And so you would have to make sure that you're looking at the specific device and what those recommendations are. Mark, there's a question from Judy. How has the Esight impacted your orientation and mobility skills? Mark? I think
yes, sorry, I was muted.
No, you're fine. Judy wanted to know how it has impacted your orientation and mobility skills.
Yeah. I would say that I don't actually use it that much for walking around and like doing mobility. So I would say that it hasn't really affected my mobility skills negatively or positively. The most I would say I've used it while moving is like reading signage in a store. But I've kind of transitioned away from carrying the Esight like outside of my like living space. Like I used to live in an apartment and then a house, so like wherever I was living, I wouldn't really like take it with me except for class. I wouldn't take it to the store. Instead, I would just use my phone to just kind of like zoom in really quick to like see what a sign says or something, because phones have gotten so much better to the point where like if it's just, less than 10 feet away or whatever, and I just need it for a second, it's just faster that way. So I don't really use it for moving or street crossings or anything like that. So I would say that it hasn't really affected my mobility skills.
Amy, is there anything that we didn't touch on that, as somebody who works with these devices quite a bit, that you would like to say?
I would just end with, it's, again, there are so many, it's great because, head-worns first came out in the 90s with, the Geordie, and they've, made tremendous progress since that first Geordie. Mark, I think you mentioned you used it, correct?
Yeah, I used it in elementary school, actually.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm sure, from going from that to the Esight was a huge change.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've definitely come a long way. But again, I think it's just really important. And Jesse, what you mentioned too, first it can be like a fun, shiny new object. So I think it's just really, when you're looking at these, to just, first of all, just, think about what your goals are, what you're going to be using it for. What's important to you, whether it's portability, and then definitely, when you're demoing them, make sure that, to avoid it just being, put on a shelf at some point and not being used, just to make sure that it is going to be the most effective tool for you. Especially, make sure it's going to be comfortable, because if not, you're not going to continue to wear it. Make sure it's, it's covering all the bases that you're wanting it to be used for. And then with anything too, it's, any kind of new technology does have a little bit of, training trial period. So you want to make sure that you give it a fair shot and ease into it. And, but most importantly, before you make the step to the wearable, just, make sure that it's going to cover everything that you're hoping it's going to do, and as much as you can, and just, you're going to have the comfort and, ease of use as well, because if it's too complicated, chances are a lot of people are going to give up on it a little quicker than they may be. So yeah, and again, that's just, they all have different bells and whistles. Some of them have vocal commands, which are great for those that might have dexterity issues, so they don't have to worry about, using physical buttons. The vocal commands come into play. And then, you know, again, some of them have a cord that, you know, are connected with a controller, and the others are, you know, don't do that. It's just run through the VR device itself. So again, just, you know, make sure that you're kind of doing, you know, due diligence and getting the one that's the best fit for you.
Yeah, so at this time, if there's any other questions from the participants on the webinar, we would like to open it up to questions because I know that these are probably one of the things that we get the most questions on in the store. And, you know, people say, well, I saw that Esight Facebook advertisement and I want to know more about it. Or, you know, the idea of not having to haul around a giant CCTV. Especially for our school students. That has been, I think, one of the biggest game changers is for our college students. And so if there's any, we have a question. Do you have demos you can show us? And I believe you have some of the physical devices with you, correct, Amy?
I do, yes. I'd be happy to, you know, I can just kind of hold that up and just explain, you know, what is what. I can do that. Do we have time for that, Jesse? Just to kind of do a quick, okay. Yeah. Okay, so the first one I've just grabbed here. So these aren't in any particular order, but so this is one of the newer ones. This is the Vision Buddy. It has an internal camera that it operates through. And what's nice about this one is they've done a great job with I don't know if you can all see this okay, but here's the head strap. And the battery is actually in the head strap, so it rests against the back of the head, so it helps a little bit more with balance.
You might hold up the
sorry.
Hold up the device a bit higher.
You see that okay? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's
Yep.
the front of it, and then there's the head strap, and then the battery is in the very back of the head strap. And this is like the Jordy in the fact that you can stream directly into the headpiece itself. And then the next one here is the Iris Vision. This is looks like a virtual reality device. And then it does have the smartphone in the front that actually controls the magnification. And this also has the head strap. What's nice about the Iris Vision is they kind of went a step further and added this longer strap that you just put around your neck. And so when you need to remove it to walk, because walking is prohibited with this, then it just hangs around your neck. So that's a nice feature. Iris Vision 2, one quick thing is this also syncs now with Alexa. So they've continued to make a lot of nice updates to that. Also, that one also has a wireless charging pad, just FYI. The third one here looks very similar to the Iris Vision, but this is it's called the Patriot Viewpoint. This is the one that I mentioned it's the only one that has the vocal commands. So you just say, make bigger, make smaller when you're wanting to adjust magnification, and change color when you're wanting to adjust your contrasts. And pardon me, I'm gonna have to reach back here. And then the last one that I have out here is the newest Jordy. So they have made some advances to this one, but this is the one that is not as aesthetically pleasing, but this runs through, it has an optical camera, whereas a lot of the other ones are more digital camera setups. So this is going to, for a lot of people, this gives a lot more, higher magnification, but as well as a clearer picture. But again, that's just depending on, the individual and their specific eye condition. So, and the Jordy does have the wired controller. So let me see if I can pull this up too. So there's the controller that is connected with the cord. So those are just, a few of the wearables that we've kind of discussed. But there are more, and yeah, happy to answer any questions on any of those individually.
Yeah, and then I don't have our set of new eyes. They're being demoed right now to somebody, but they do, the new eyes does have one that's the VR headset style that looks very similar to the ones that Amy just held up, as well as the ones that look more like sunglasses. They just like really thick sunglasses with blacked out lenses. And the Esight, again, it's not that VR style. We don't have one on Alphapointe property anymore, but it's kind of a visor that you wear. Like if you've watched Star Trek and you see Geordi with his visor, that really is a lot like what the Esight looks like.
That's what the newer Esights look like. They're like a white visor that goes just over your eyes and around a bit. And then the older Esight looks a lot like the Geordi, just without the protrusion in the front.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I know sometimes something that we get asked is, can you wear prescription lenses with them? And that is, I know Esight, you can have custom prescription inserts made. Of course, that's going to cost you extra. But with some of these newer VR style ones in particular, Amy, they can wear their glasses with them. Is that correct? Or
yes, they can. I have found, strangely enough, it seems most people do better without their glasses, wearing it with the wearable. But again, that's just, it's going to vary. But yes, you are able to wear glasses with the VR type headpieces.
I would say that one of the reasons why, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jesse.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I would say that one of the big reasons why people benefit with and without the prescription is because a lot of times your prescription is for like a distance, a little bit of distance vision or something like that, not necessarily for super close up. Especially if you do that, you're going to have a lot more trouble with something like the Esight, for example, because what you're really looking at is a screen that's like very close to your eyes. So you're focusing on a thing that's very close, and the details that are all there aren't really farther away. You're not focusing on a farther away object. You're just focusing on the screen that's right there. So I would say if you're going to put a prescription in them, go for like a near sight prescription, unless you're going to be tilting them up a lot. If you tilt them up a lot, you're of course going to want your regular prescription for like distance. But I would say that that's like the big difference, is that you're really not focusing on something far away when you're looking through the Esight. You're focusing on something very close. And that's something that, kind of causes some confusion, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It is, even closer than normal reading distance, because the screen that you're looking at is right there up against your face, just a few inches away from your vision. And then we had a question about the one that had the audible controls. That was the Patriot Viewpoint.
Correct. Right. I'm sorry, did they want a little bit more info on that?
I think just wanted the name of it was the,
okay, yep.
Which one that was. That was the Patriot Viewpoint, and that is one that NanoPack sells. So are there any other questions for our guest panelists today? All right, well, we do want to say thank you for joining us. Again, Alphapointe is a nationwide leader in the education and rehabilitation of those with vision loss. If you or someone you know has vision loss and you believe that you would benefit from our products or services, please give us a call at 816-421-5848. And if you are interested in scheduling a low vision clinic appointment or scheduling an appointment to see some of these wearables at our Connecting Point store, that is open currently by appointment only due to COVID, but you can call 816-237-2020, and we would be happy to schedule you with one of those appointments. And then please join us next week as we have the second part of our wearable series that will be focusing on products specifically for those with total vision loss. So products that provide auditory feedback versus the products today, which were focused on magnification. And we want to say thank you to Mark and to Amy for joining us today and sharing their experiences with our wearable magnification devices. We appreciate having you guys here.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you.
Have a good day, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.